Are you ever curious about your family history? I've been curious. We have the things like ancestry.com. I've looked into that. I was fortunate enough, I took a once in a lifetime trip to New York a few years ago now, and I was able to go to Ellis Island, and four of my grandparents came directly through Ellis Island. They were my great grandparents, and my grandparents were first generation Americans. And so that would make me, I guess, third generation, I guess. So I got to go to Ellis Island and look up their ships and try to find their names and all of these registries. And it's really cool if you have a chance to do it, to find out, because their names were changed and they had to go through all of these processes to get into the country, and they had to go through the hospital and all medical exams and everything. And every immigrant had to come up this double wide set of stairs into the Grand Hall. And when I was there, it was just really cool. I got my picture taken there on those steps going up to the Grand Hall, knowing that every one of my great grandparents had to walk up those steps to get into America. And so I thought it was kind of cool. There's a lot of genealogies in the Bible, and you see, and we've read some in Genesis and Exodus, and now we're flipping forward to the New Testament to look at them in the book of Matthew. Matthew starts out again with the genealogy. And we kind of discussed it a little bit, but I wanted us to see if we could understand the significance of the genealogies a little bit deeper so that they have more importance to us. You see, God created family. When we were in creation and when creation in the garden and God created Adam and Eve and everything was in perfect harmony and perfection, we were walking with God. It says that they walked with God in the garden, and it was this idyllic family, God and Adam and Eve. Well, then the fall happened, of course, and sin entered the world and disrupted every balance in the earthly realm. Our own DNA, everything is corrupted by the sin virus, and we cannot be in the presence, well, God cannot be in the presence of sin. It just can't happen. So God used this real world, hands-on way to bring forth his plan to return us to his family through the concept of family. He gives it to us so we can understand what it means, so that we can understand our relationship with the Father and our relationship with Christ. Adam and Eve, they had three sons that we know of that are named in the Bible: Cain and Abel and Seth. Well, Eve had to give birth to those children. Prior to that, she would not, if they stayed in the garden, she would not have to have labor or childbirth or pain or any of those things. And I believe God set up this system called the family to teach us about how he loves. And he tells us that over and over, that Jesus loves his church. We are Jesus' church. His followers are his church. The same as a bride and a groom. And we see God as our Father, and we understand the love that we have for our children. I really started to notice this when my kids were teenagers and young adults, and trying to parent them and getting them to do what is a better choice for them, and they just don't listen, or they just do the opposite of what you say. And during that period of time, I realized that's what God must feel like, because he only wants what's best for us, and he only wants us to follow what is going to bring about the best in our life, and we still refuse. So there's this built-in just immersive experience that helps us to understand our family of God. And so we have these families that come down in the genealogy, and Jesus, he is part of that family, our human family, coming down through the ages. And God, in his plan, We unite ourselves with Jesus when we become his followers, and he becomes our sibling. And that lays the foundation for the path back directly to be adopted back into God's holy family so that we can be with him holy in eternity. So like Jesus is like this, he comes down through the ages, he's like our brother, and he's the person that's going to connect us back to God. And it's all about family. And so that's why, a lot of Christians stress, family values and those kind of things. That's why they're important. But a lot of Christians don't really get that that's the why that they're important. But God's plan is revealed through his this vehicle that he created, the family. Now, when it comes to family, I fully understand that not all families are the perfect model of a family. Most of our families are broken. A lot of us didn't have two parents. A lot of us didn't have that unconditional love that only the Father in heaven can give us. In those situations, I think God's plan still works, maybe even better, because we are seeing what is the product of sin and how when we're restored to God's family, that he loves us more than any earthly parent could ever love us. It's important to remember that when you're parenting your own children, especially I have to remind myself stuff I've gone through with the teenagers and young adults, that God loves my children more than I do, or more than I'm able to, or more than I'm able to comprehend. And that assures me and helps me, because there's going to be days where we all feel like we messed up the parent thing. And, we just can trust and know that they are his children first. And I think by now, we've read in Genesis and Exodus, and I think by now that you have a clear understanding that these families that God created were broken from the beginning because sin is in there. Look at the examples. We have the first brothers, one kills each other. We have different baby mamas. We have all of these things happening. We have mothers trying to get inheritance for a different child, all of these things. I look at that and I look at our life today, and we're always saying how everything is so terrible. But even in the original families, all of this brokenness existed. And it still serves as a model to point us back to creation and that perfect unity that someday we can be a part of again. Now, we're going to move on and read more of the Old Testament as we spend our time in our Bible reading together over the months. And we're going to get into more prophecy and prophetic things that are said about Jesus. And a lot of the prophecy is Jesus' genealogy, his family line, who he was born from. And so in the New Testament, when Jesus is born and his lineage lines up with prophecy, it's validation that he is, in fact, the Messiah. But it goes deeper than that. And I love the way that Matthew is explaining it right away. And he's explaining it, and how I imagine it in my head is there's three main trunks to Jesus's family tree. One is he's the son of Adam, he's the son of Abraham, and he's a son of David. So imagine a tree that's like split in those three major ways. And by saying that Jesus is a son of Adam, that means he's a son of God's creation. Adam was created by God, and we are descendant. We have that family connection. That's how our branch is, where it comes from. And then in the middle branch, he says that he's a son of Abraham. Well, Abraham was the original person God made his covenant with, that all of his people were going to be birthed and come. All the nations were going to come through Abraham. And God gives that covenant to Abraham. And not only are you able to trace all the things, how the Hebrew nation evolved and came together, After Abraham, he has his sons, and then there's Isaac and Jacob and Esau, and then all of Jacob's sons become the 12 tribes of Israel. Each of them leads a family, and they all become 12 branches of this family tree. So you have Abraham, and then splitting off, and then splitting off again, and then 12 branches all up there. So he's saying Jesus is part of that. And that's the original covenant was made with Abraham and the Hebrew people to restore all of creation. And so it also says that Jesus is the son of David. And that means that he is King David's son. That means Jesus is royalty. He is of the royal line. So that's significant. Not only, it would have been so significant to the Hebrew people at the time, and knowing all these people and knowing their own family lineages in extreme detail would be, they would know that. And so all of this would mean so very much to them, because they know what these implications are. They know what it means when you say you're a son of Abraham, a son of David. But I love this next part that, I've read it before but glanced over it, but this time I really thought about it, and I just love this part that Matthew includes. Matthew includes some of the mothers and some of Jesus' grandmothers. Most of the lineage isn't, in Abraham, and there is some lineage, and they do say who the mother was of some of the lines. But in this specific case, Matthew mentions 3 women. He mentions Rahab, he mentions Ruth, and he mentions Bathsheba. And he says these are all in Jesus' direct line. Jesus is a direct descendant of these 3 women. This is super significant for us, not just as women, but as as Christians in the modern world, as non-Hebrew people. Because you see, Ruth, she was not an Israelite. She was not from the 12 tribes of Israel. And yet she's part of Jesus' bloodline. And Rahab was a prostitute. She was a Canaanite. She was not part of the 12 tribes. She was not a Hebrew. And Jesus' line is connected to her. And then the last person he mentions is Bathsheba. And Bathsheba is the Bathsheba from King David, that he stole Bathsheba and had her husband killed. And their first child died as a result of their sin, the Bible tells us. And they had another son, and his name was Solomon. So Solomon was not the next heir in succession to the throne of King David. But Bathsheba went and pleaded her case, and she worked in such a way that her son Solomon ended up taking over the throne. And we all know Solomon. We've heard stories of his wisdom, and we're going to get down into that in more chapters of the Bible. But what that says for us is that God is showing in his plan, through his family plan, that he's opened up his plan, and his plan is now reaching out of the Hebrew people to extend to all of humanity. You see, God chose the Hebrew people to start his covenant with, to form those families, to start the process. But we already see by the time Jesus is born that those barriers, those family tree, those branches are leafing all over the place to conclude me and you and all of the world that is not in part of the Hebrew nation. So it's exciting stuff, and that genealogy is really more important and more exciting than it seems, besides a list of hard names to say.